Okay, well, hello everyone in the room and via satellite. I'm absolutely jazzed to be a part of introducing 2 seasons, I guess, of poets and books for Talonbooks. So thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Spencer. Talonbooks, the house, for bringing us such beautiful work yet again. I'm here visiting on the unceded territories of the Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam, and Squamish people. I don't get to Vancouver too much these days. It's always a privilege to stand and to speak, and absolutely to introduce our first poet. So this next poet, I kind of wanted to have a 10-piece funk band opening for her as she walked out on the stage. In fact, I might have promised her that that was going to happen. Anyway, it might still happen at some point, but we're celebrating this debut poetry book. This is once again another veteran poet, first book, Junie Desil. Junie Desil is of Haitian ancestry. She's born of immigrant parents on the traditional territories of the Ganegahage, on an island, known as Diadiage, otherwise known as Montreal. She was raised in Treaty 1 territory in Winnipeg, survived the prairies, as it were. Junie has performed at various literary events and festivals. Her work has appeared in Room Magazine, Prism International, the Capilano Review, CV2, and so on. A recovering academic, yes, after my heart, a UBC alumnus, and most recently a participant in the Simon Fraser University's Writers' Studio. Junie currently works in the downtown east side of Vancouver, which is one of the places that we've crossed paths over the years, but an early feminist scenes in Vancouver since the early aughts. So an old friend for me relative to these territories. Here on the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh lands where she works, and she lives currently, she used to live in Kikite territory, so-called New West, but has moved recently to Katzie, Kwantlen, and Stalo territory, and a little bit too far away in a time when we can't cross regions. So missing Junie Desil. This is a thunderous book, and I sure hope you all make time for it. Please join me in welcoming the beautiful Junie Desil.
Here. It's not the same ocean, I know, but ocean is ocean and it's salty. You still have to watery squint your eyes when the sun blazing scorches the surface, shimmers, the horizon shifts. It's still the same sound pattern of the recede. Come in, recede further, come in again. The sound of pressure builds, crashes, pounds. The tug and insistent pull when you're in tune with the ocean. Sink toes, this land borrowed far from another, this constant familiar uneasiness. How to write about what you carry but don't know. Strange inheritance one carries, everyday code understandable if born of Haitian soil, submerged in salt sea, bracing rivers, falls. I start with origins. I was not here. I am not there. Rather, the line from here today tethers collective trauma, umbilical, centuries old. Those bones a bridge over oceans, triangulated passages. A bridge. And so, succumb, let go. I'm afraid I'll be overcome, envahi, engulfed, swallowed. Instead, stoic, I keep this ocean behind my eyes, my heart at bay, slow grab, drag, rake, sudden emptiness of the ocean floor. Rationalize, trace the origins, collective trauma. Here, no real home, as in, what does it matter? It's happened. Zombies, reimagined response, enslavement etched in bones. Ask mother about zombies, the back home kind. She won't speak except to start and stop, words caught in her throat. I ask father. I am a man of God. Don't pay attention to such things. silence. So I ask books from the library, keep them from touching other books, or caressed by the same night wind against my back. I ask for help, guidance to write these words, offer a prayer, remembering, give thanks before asking favors. Zombie, zombification process, de-zombification, Haitian zombie. Ask the library and the internet vague and also specific questions, at least 11 different ways. I used quotations, asterisks. I tried zombie, Walking Dead, even comparative verses. Salt, ocean, eat salt, reanimation. At night, the pile of library books stay outside my bedroom. René Depest's Hadriana in All My Dreams, Wade Davis's Passage of Darkness, maybe the books with Veve drawings like stick and poke tattoos, their shapes, arrows, draw down the loas to language of gods I don't know. I don't want supernatural gifts. Jump at shadows, words rattle about, stop their noise as sky train wheels scree around the bend. Luminous eye of the train blind my wide open ones. Wonder if I've accidentally summoned these gods to wake this husk. Crack of the whip call, our dead's lips sewed, black thread or wire might not answer. Stuck. I ask for help, read accounts appropriated, reinvented white tales of zombies, watch I Am Legend, 28 Days, World War Z, Night of the Living Dead, Shaun of the Dead, iZombie, Warm Bodies, Walking Dead, Santa Clarita Diet, Dawn of the Dead. Now, mass culture, mass consumption zombie, disease vector, technology symbol for mindless labor, not quite slave labor, everyone for themselves zombie, sexual liberation taboo, zombie futurism, in which zombie has consumed the consumerist escapist fantasy. When mother disappears into the crisp winter darkness to remember old white folks, zombie-like shuffle, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, fend off unwanted advances. He's old. He doesn't mean anything. While father sits, blue mercury idling, breath, fog, weight. They'll rummage in her bag to make sure no thing has been lifted. Theft, against company policy, simultaneously ply her with stale, bland Christmas cake charity, also against company policy. Triple shift, work nights, drain the day, cook and clean, no pay, sleep. Petrified, I've absorbed fear somewhere. Lullabies and kisses, stern admonishment on my deportment, how to be a good black girl, between harried cooking instructions. Curious, anxious questions shooed away or responded to, don't remember, child sleep, late night crawl on my belly, snake-like. Listen to adult conversations, hush-toned over back-home food, heavy, buttery, yellow Haitian cake, chased down with instant coffee, lait carnation, or sweet, thick, jewel red, green vodka syrup or crémasse, creamy smooth, guests only. Strain to hear the Haitian patois voices rise, fall, punctuated, preternatural lullaby, silence between fickle remembrance, memory. How to write about zombies when you're a generation removed from the soil and several generations removed from Languinay, and colonial words crowd your mouth, still your tongue, and sever the connections between land, language, self, whitewash at best. How to write about these things that terrify and resolve into odd shapes at night, lurk in shadows of the smooth heart muscle, joints of bones, marrows, tip of fingers and tongue. This is how to write about zombies. Silence met with silence, dread imbued in every cell, feverish search. Write about zombies, you'll need iron will. Brace your heart. Zombie. There are worse things than ghosts, worse than spirits that make you cry, laugh incessantly. It doesn't matter. Worse things than hauntings, than spirits crouched in corners, nursing ancestral wounds. Ancient family magic on both sides collide, suck life. I'm losing weight, she says. Teeth are falling out, lisps, asthma, wheezes, breath catches, weeps, spider-webbed glass heart. She will die slowly, but she won't really die. That's important. She will be pronounced dead. That's very important. The guardian of the cemetery summons. She, zombie-like. Mother, newly single, she weeps incessantly, I think her cowardly, at times for her unwavering faith, how she looks forward to this shiny heaven, believes herself ruined and yet accommodates. Accommodate. We have made accommodations. Guinea is heaven and heaven Guinea. There is beauty in believing in an after so hard, a balm for the present wounds. Gonzo. Seabrook, journalist of sorts, writes Magic Island, introduces and popularizes the zombie, his accounts neither fiction or embroidery. Gonzo. Before Hunter coined the term 1971, just embedded journalism, coined 2003. American military personnel stationed in Haiti, 1919 to 1934, land publishing contracts, write about their exploits. Before Gonzo, embedded military, before embedded journalists, reporting subjective history repeats itself, repackaged. Nothing new, just the same narrative thread. Light-headed, either the Dunhills or the thread, likely both. Smoke ring into the light-studded sky. White zombies play on, play on, play on. Phone screen. Here's a story about dead men working sugar fields. Worked for the Haitian American Sugar Company, Hasco. Hasco, founded by Charles Steinhem, John Christie, and Frank Corpay, August 5, 1912, registered in Wilmington, Delaware, with a $5 million capital. 1915, Hasco's operations under threat, anxieties over German business interests, need to dominate and secure economic interests in Haiti, U.S. Marine invasion and occupation. 1918, Hasco increased need and demand, bodies to work the fields, more bodies, bonuses on wages as incentive, entire families register their bodies, more bodies to harvest sugarcane. Old man C. Joseph, his wife Croyance bring bodies, more bodies, harvest bitter sugar. Anyways, those dead folks working the sugarcane fields like it's 1820. About that, Croyance felt sorry for them. All that work in the fields for Hasco, bland food, took them to the market. It would be fun, she thought. Had already fed them unsalted boiled plantain and meat, bland food. They were zombies after all. Single file shuffled to the market, spied a vendor selling tablette, sweet peanut brittle. This would be a nice treat. They ate the tablette, salted, reanimated, leapt up, ran off towards their respective graves, reburying themselves, free to finally die.
Our next reader, I'm super pleased to introduce, having crossed paths over the years in the city of Surrey, missed on that front, I should say, Taryn Hubbard. This is a debut poetry book, once again, as somebody who's been writing for a really long time and with significance in communities, so it's kind of exciting to see the work manifest on the page. Just to read from the bio. So Taryn Hubbard's poetry, fiction, reviews, and interviews have been included in journals such as Canadian Literature or Literature Canadienne, Room, the Capilano Review, Canadian Women's Studies, CV2, Filling Station, and so on. She holds a BA in English and Communications from Simon Fraser University and a certificate in journalism from Langara College. As I say, whip smart on the communication fronts. She currently lives in Maple Ridge with her family, and Desire Path, as I mentioned, is her first book. So let's give it up for Taryn Hubbard, also for the work of Mama Poets, which is an extraordinary labor that we all appreciate. So once again, Taryn Hubbard.
Thank you, Cecily, so much for that warm introduction. I just want to, before I begin reading for you tonight, I just want to say thank you to Talon. This, as Cecily mentioned, this is my first book, and the experience has been just wonderful. From working with Cecily Nicholson herself, I got to work with her, and Katrina Strang, it was great, so thank you. As Cecily mentioned in my intro, this book explores Surrey and different phases of my life, living and working in Surrey. So the first poem I thought I would read is Wayfinding, because if you've ever tried to drive through Surrey, you might think, hey, all these blocks look the same. So Wayfinding. The suburban highway links signs, attention pinches, stuck logos cast in plastic. It's hard to find the idea of here and there from a form that grew only from the idea of car and home. Meet me at the Chevron. Meet me at the 7-Eleven. Meet me where the median divides this road with crosswalk in dash cam, 8-lane spans. Next year, the city will be longer, stretch and stretched further into the woods, darkness brightened with high beams. In my old city center or Wally neighborhood, there was a big Canada Post, and they had a mosquito sound outside of it. And if you aren't familiar with what a mosquito is, it's a really high decibel sound that only a certain age group can hear. Now, this is an old poem, so I'm not sure if I can hear it anymore, but I used to be able to hear it. So this poem is called Sounds Only Youth Can Hear. On steps where one might sleep public, alarms chime reminders to go. What a difference an alarm makes at decibels only youth can hear. A reckless buzz every endless day scatters people across the highway even. I can hear the alarm above the traffic, in front of the methadone clinic, across 4 lanes, in high-pitched chirps, away, 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 away. This next poem is called Moon Schedule, inspired by my same neighborhood. It was being revitalized, and so when you're walking through a revitalized neighborhood, you might see old steps from the old houses that aren't there anymore. So I always found that to be quite interesting to see. So this is called Moon Schedule. Cement stairs left over, 4 thick slabs, moss slick welcome, unwelcome visitors to lot. A house removed, remainder gypsum board chunk, heavy rain-plunged t-shirts. Do you remember this house? Phantom shingles, my boot stuck in mud, mostly puddle in cigarette butts, hookups left open. That frustrating glassless house flew orange tarp sails before demo. This spot where I'd walk up to your room. Tonight's supermoon smooths what foundations left. To sidewalks cut edge, this property's all dug up, rimmed with stomp lucky logger, surrendered deposit. In the same kind of vein, near Surrey SkyTrain, Surrey City Centre SkyTrain, it's a bustling SkyTrain. I think it's one of the most busiest bus loops, actually, in Metro Vancouver. So always a lot going on. It was inspired by just some observations that I had constantly walking around there. It's called In the Afternoon. Outside the train station steps hold commuters coming and going. A plaza spray-painted white. Don't touch. For $40, get an unlocked iPhone. $30, a t-shirt with silver flourish. $15, adobo rice, 2-liter Coke. Toonie pizza slice. $30,000, a unit reserved, no PST promo. The bus loop dons title of city center. A schedule of routes tied briefly before unraveling down major arterials. Moments between sidewalks and almost empty lots except the one plastic lawn chair on nest egg easement, an option to turn grass into wider driving. Commuter hearts start like the engine of diesel trucks when field or cross station, free for all-day parking, gets dug up. Update, new pay parking. Stalls for rent, between line drawn, touch, rough cut, iridescent left from a windshield thrown down. The bus is empty, or there is too much of a line, or I saw a fistfight at my stop one time for no reason. Jump fences of the afternoon. Jump triangle stacks of failed asphalt. Kick a rain-soaked curb couch. It's not a real Mayflower. It's a Slurpee cup soaked through. I have a few poems that I want to share that are about being a kid growing up in Surrey. So when I was a kid, I grew up next to a pub, and they built a huge wall, and we didn't have a fence, so it was pretty much all we had. So I wrote this poem as kind of remembering this wall. Can't force a ghost. Warm ghosts are the best ghosts to invite over. I invite them. And together we conjure ambition in a 10-foot-high barrier along the south side of a clay yard, my yard. A family spot where the dog can escape the other 3 sides. It's not a proper fence, it's a wall. No matter. The thing is, the wall is where we weigh our days, where bricks shadow our lives. A barrier to keep out disruptions. The disruptions come anyway. When my neighbor is a suburban neighborhood pub. When Maggie goes running down the street after drinking 4 Long Island iced teas, no dinner, wonder about Long Island, and running, and the voice that shouts through the ghosts milling on the sidewalk, Maggie, I'm so sorry, just come back maybe. Come back, baby, baby shit. Another memory that I was thinking about on the SkyTrain here is if we ever went camping or something, my dad would put a butcher knife in the door jamb as an extra layer of security. So I've never heard of anyone doing this before. So this is how we had secured our houses in the 90s in Surrey. So if you have heard of this before and have a memory of it, email me. I'd love to connect. It's called Impossible Superstition. A knife in the door jamb, a house locked shut. I had to wipe my eyes twice when I saw it. For safety reasons, the dolphins bob in my brain and not beside the boat. The sounds from the streets are in my toes, not in my ears. And in late August, the spiders come in to cozy up to us. They want to find a peaceful place to rest, and we let them. Mum in the nursery planting flowers from seed Dad cuts mirror. When the mirror shatters, it's swept together. When a mirror breaks each day, the bad luck penetrates more lifetimes than we could ever count. But I still count them. I count them down. And then the last poems I'll read are about becoming a mother. And right now I'm 8.5 months pregnant. And at this point, mine gets a bit fuzzy. So I wrote some poems when I was pregnant with my first kid, when I had the fuzzy kind of brain. They're kind of fun. So this one's called Matter. I try identifying the opportunist versus the bully versus the one who sees an opportunity in everyone they meet. I take the makeup off my cheeks and gently add it to the pile, headed to the biofuel plant. A frozen brain is one sign the shadows are doing what they're supposed to. The look of the day was to downplay one's more austere features with expensive bubblegum fill. I didn't think of walking as a way of understanding until I broke a bank of small rocks over my ankles. The direction forward is full-fat yogurt and EV parking. The night he yelled graveyard from the bath, I summoned a personal truth about working non-standard hours. One week it was 3 pounds of apples, the next it was 5, and each one of them I ate off a blade. I watched 2 happy woodpeckers become increasingly disturbed by my presence and thought, of course they would. Of course the application for the bank was lost under a flat of sugar-free pop. As a material collector, I put everything into my bag, even the coupon for a tire rotation for a 4x4 I do not own. Slowly, I learned to cuddle my rage with thoughtfully applied pressure. Psychologically, it was better to scroll the news than seek it out. Still, it could be worse. Still, I could remember to turn the front light on when it's dark enough. And this next poem is called Little Halupshi, and Halupshi is Ukrainian for cabbage rolls, so kind of reminiscing about Ukrainian grandmas. A storm of Matryoshka dolls spills from my hips and onto the floor. We hadn't noticed they'd been waiting there, populating. It was a surprise, even for me, though we didn't speak of it. And now they're dancing on the gleaming green linoleum because we're dancing too. What does this say about how I pay attention to what I'm doing? On afternoons spent peeling back layers of boiled cabbage, my fingers go numb. This is probably because I think things will be easier than they are. When the dolls re-nest, we miss them, the way they didn't talk, just moved. How attached we'd become to something we didn't know we wanted. Something gained, unexpected, and it's with you. It's all so necessary, so quickly. And I'll end my reading with my last poem in the book, and it's a titleless little dispatch. I'll call to tell the rest I'm growing you is beautiful and blooming. On the busted spokes of the shopping cart I untangled from the blackberry bush overtaking the ditch. Thank you.
Well, Taryn, thank you so much. That was amazing. And I love that the speed at which you communicate and work and read poetry is fascinating, and with you for the ride. Thank you for making the journey here. This next poet, where to start? Well, let's start. Fred was born in Swift Current, Saskatchewan. That seems like a good place. And he grew up in the West Kootenay region of British Columbia. He studied at UBC in the early 1960s and is one of the founding editors of the poetry newsletter Tish. So this is our second appearance of a former member of the Tish Collective this evening. So that feels kind of special. Maria, of course, was here reading earlier. So this moment in time, in terms of the history on this coast, in terms of poetics, it's hard not to know that influence and to feel that influence from that particular moment in time. After graduate work with Robert Creeley at the University of New Mexico and with Charles Olson at SUNY Buffalo, he returned to the Kootenays in the late 1960s, founding the writing program at DTUC, and I think that's David Thompson University Center, University? Yep, okay. Before moving on to teach at the University of Calgary. A pioneer of online publishing, he has mentored and continues to mentor generations, plural, of some of the most exciting new voices in poetry today. Of his 17 books of poetry, Isadore received the BC Book Prize, Waiting for Saskatchewan received the Governor General's Award, and so far was awarded the Stevson Award for Poetry. Diamond Grill, which was actually, incidentally, my introduction to Fred's work long before I moved to Vancouver, is a biofiction about hybridity and growing up in in a small town Chinese-Canadian cafe. It won the Howard O'Hagan Award for Short Fiction, and his collection of critical writing, Faking It, Poetics and Hybridity, received the Gabriel Roy Prize. Waugh was appointed to the Order of Canada in 2012. And he served, I'm sure, the very difficult, challenging job of Canada's Parliamentary Poet Laureate from 2011 to 2013. So to learn more about his work, just a shout out to the Fred Waugh Digital Archive. And also thought I might share the small blurb that I wrote in support of the back of this book, which is perhaps one of the hardest blurbs I've ever written. Music at the heart of thinking, builds from intention, methodically and superbly practicing to get it right. Attentive to what is legible, Waugh sifts, draws, distills, and lifts the resonant strains a reader will hear as music, quote, as much space as deep time, end quote, with a clarity that, quote, articulates distances and fields. This kinetic density, aerated by experience and relation, propelled by knowledge and dedication, lends necessary horizons, neuron, pacific, and infinite, as the practice and promise of galactic coherence soars. Please join me in welcoming the wonderful Fred Waugh.
Oh, thank you so much, Cecily. It's just wonderful to be introduced by one of the best poets around, and I just loved how she's able to get a hold of poetry, and I'm so happy and grateful that she offered this blurb for this book, Music at the Heart of Thinking, which is a book of improvisations, and it's been going on for 40 years or so, and I guess might continue to go. I don't know. It's just, it comes and goes. They're all responses to other pieces of writing, art, music, and I don't really acknowledge those in the text or at footnotes or anything, so they're just sort of improvs, riffs. 6. Maria asked me to read this one, and I'm very happy to read this for her. Sentence, the true morphology or shape of the mind, including a complete thought forever, little ridges, little rhythms, scoping out the total picture as a kind of automatic designing device or checklist. Anyone I've found in true thought goes for all solution to the end, concatenates every component within the lines, within the picture as a cry to represent going to it, with the definite fascination of a game where the number of possibilities increases progressively with each additional bump, Plato thought. The next, just kind of reading through a selection of these here, and so number 59, I think there's 170 of them in the book, but they stretch over the years. Around here, I'd like to be St. Mountain Station on the Great Northern Tracks in the natural situation. Don't you talk of speaking, singing, soul carried forward, lines of a life, truth written in the lie of the word? Maps through the days make a lot of sense. Imagine friends beyond these times, sure a recompense. When St. Orme runs the alpine ridges on Kootenay Lake, on the beach at my feet, single waves of history break. Now I know the names to measure in this language stream, whatever rhymes with no sense, keys the dream. And the next one is, I think, 94, right. 94. This is no mass synapse I'm after, and I've known a while now being lost is as simple as sitting on a log. But the fumble, jerked mystique clouds grabbing as the staked mistake or stacked and treasured garbage belongs familiar to a gardened world disturbed as heat. Oh, soft anxiousness to be found again and again, estranged but marvelous, then enlivened slope of scree and marmot whistle, so that synchronous foreignicity rages in music. I want to put into a region of the cadence before falling's recognized, you know, where there's that disgraceful ensoulment Mao called swimming. And this is a piece. It's kind of just one long toke of breath. But I don't have enough breath to do that. But just imagine. Loose change. number 108. Now I know I have a heart because it's broken, but should I fix it now to keep it stroken? Or should I hear each piece as it is spoken and stoke heart's heat so hot I smell it smokin'? Or could this clock made up of parts be jokin', that missing spark, a misread gap provokin', and little sock of baby breath not chokin', the piggy bank of words much more than tokens, not just the gossip love is always cloaked in, nor all the meaning text is usually soaked in, but roast potatoes for a tender button, so much depends upon the things unspoken, and if the heart is just this clock, around which clusters all that's not, and if the of and to and in, that it is I for be was as, can set these elementes far apart. Please hasten slowly, old tin man. I'll stop right now and have an egg because I know its yolk's inside, and what I have to do is crack it open. This is 114. And I think it's as I recall, it's a kind of response to something Robin Blazer wrote. I don't know what, though. That's the drawer of poetry, closed to keep the lake from flooding. Probably the secret of syntax itself. Indefinite junctures of the hyphenated eam cluster posing in wait for a synapse or quilt of meaning. Nothing's wrong. In other words, a humming sound of bees, perhaps. Just throw it into the drawer. Twisted threads. Mess is poetry's mass. And let's see. The next one is, it's actually, I love hockey, and so this one's about a puck. First you put the puck into the net, blind and intended, old growth, free, timed, all for the of equanimous. Game on, disengage, or share the blind spot, all that meanness inside blindsided. She, he. Notice how the pronoun gets evaded, avoided as a kind of cultural punctuation in the hopes that family history will become class history, or more recently, architecture. This is the new social. Now you can't just go out and listen to the old tunes, blindly recording, eating things. I've always suspected the passive voice. The object of the action has such a fiery breath. Minimize energy demand for heating and cooling. Go passive. Future simple and past continuous. Perfect, the present is. Nobody lifts their eyes. Silence becomes the habit. Work will use up the cattle. Their fields, phyla of proprioception. The pastry in the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis is technician. How you think is the writing on the boards. Really, you could discover the truth, but the numinous is phenomenal. How the idea is to be perfect, the goal, the body. That's really a kind of pandemic poem, I just realized, coming in, just slipped in there in these gray winter pandemic days. This Data Anna Blue, it's a kind of it's a takeoff of a Kurt Schwitter's piece. I think that's probably pretty obvious. Oh, lie me 27 in. Oh yes, do lie me. Do diner tick dough roll dear just dust clear here. Oh, do go lightly. Don't mind me. 27 sins and likely let's have more. Do dine her, squeeze her, count her and her, but where? Do best, do worst, lie spoonin' here, but ride the blinds and night with her. Do diner trick dough roll dear dust clear here. Lemon, yes, we're skin. How are you, biscuit leaf, shaken in the rust? Just call red luck, you'll be another bloom. Oh yes, do lie me, do diner tick dough roll dear dust clear here on the line. Fresh press, Anna, put another on her hat. Blues to die for, groans so vocal, yes, to kiss her. Anna, Nana, nah. Nana, Anna, whom? Do diner tick-dough, roll dear, dust clear here. Dining on your name before and after dinner. You then, you, yours truly, I'm there. Oh, I know it. Oh, I know you know it, Anna. Honey dripper, dew salty rider, Anna Nana blue, dew drop to here. I love your you, yours, here and here and here. And this is 136. It's called Dancing. Told me that feelings were like shoulders. Used to say there was kindness in growing, but didn't ask to see the filling or the stuffing. So finally the apples fell off the tree. You see them and suddenly clap hands. This after having bitten but not eaten. Then Jack wrote the song Shine On, Harvest Moon, the one where flesh is held close in dancing, a little different than testing the potatoes. When I asked him if he had booked a shot, he told me fish under the creek swam. The song debuted first as slung ticks of policing. Downtown it was hand to mouth and hand over hand. All around the gym we counted without thinking. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. Tried to keep our feet moving. It was, he said, the arithmetic of sadness. And the last one I'm going to read is, it's actually two. These are both part of a little response to B.P. Nichols' Martyrology 9, I believe. 144. This is the love poem. That is the symptom. This is the footprint. That is the clue. This is the sand. That is the footprint. This is the trail. That is the song. This is the headlight. That is the diagnosis. This is the scat. That is the index. This is the referral. That is the snapped twig. This is the drop of oil in the water that metaphorically becomes the manual of reconnaissance and scouting. This is the single black hair fluttering in a small piece of film displayed in the headlights, still in love, wanting to find the right way home. And the last piece, 145. That in this life alone becomes complete. It all looks done and zeroed in on one a stony stone, a perfect single rock we be, sunk down, becoming moan. That in this life the stranger seems to be the only one who knows the song, the one that starts with oh and ends just passing through. That in this life the pronoun's heart breaks I to you and triple tongues of me, 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 whose echoes overlap inflected waves of them, us, they, and we. That in this life, when the meaning's over and the dog heads down to the creek, when the old man's gone and the lights go out, the last leg falls asleep, when one turns to zero, thinking's complete, just before the end of its sentence. Thanks very much.
Colin Browne. There's a lot to be said. Writer, critic, artist, curator, that's a short list. Tonight he's going to be reading from his new book, Here, which I think is a resounding title. I love it. Published in September 2020 by Talonbooks. Colin has been published for a very long time in the round of poetry. I believe 1987 was his debut. But with Talonbooks, he's published The Fungus Man, Platters of Charles Edenshaw, The Hatch, Poems and Conversations, The Properties, The Shovel, and Groundwater. So I love the nouns. In 2018, Colin Browne collaborated with composer Alfredo Santa Anna in a creation and production of music for the night in May. This was 3 works for string quartet, soprano, and spoken voice. It was presented at the Vancouver East Cultural Centre. Colin and Alfredo are currently working on a new piece called Aves, and The Four-Chambered Heart is the title of this one. So kind of this wonderful range of practices, and it continues. Colin has been a guest curator at the Vancouver Art Gallery, and I think has been involved in a number of art shows and practices through the years. Internationally has contributed to art writing and art catalogs, and is renowned in this regard. His most recent interviews you could catch in the Capilano Review that's out this winter. Interviews, with Letitia Fazakas, I'm sorry for that pronunciation, Alan Hunt, and Cole Speck, recalling Bodick. Critical work, and I'll cap it there because there's so much more to say. Please join me in welcoming the lovely Colin Browne.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching. Well, this is lovely, and I want to thank Talonbooks very much for doing this. And I'm going to read 3 poems. One is because Fred was just read before me. I don't know if Fred will be you'll watch us in order, but in any case, I'm going to read a poem. First of all, for Fred, called Fred, I'm in the Spiritual Bookstore. I'm going to turn this up just a wee bit. Fred, I'm in the spiritual bookstore. Please rescue me. The real Jesus smolt of strewn Orpheus, who decoded the recipe for eternal life in the water writing of Jumon holy men, whose waxy knuckle bones sprout hair in a bejeweled chest, the whereabouts of which are known only to the matriarchs of an ancient samurai clan, determined to foil rivals hell-bent on cloning the next Messiah, is winning me over. A synthesized sitar vibrates the speaker plate above my head. I'm becoming a better person through piercing sonic blasts. It smells like Buddha's bedroom. I've channeled Leonard Cohen's sideburns. Such good intentions. So many prescriptions on these shelves for shelving self-revulsion. The home addresses of angels and archangels. Fred, the invisible world is suffocating me. The nation is a charnel pit. I told Peter I have of late been weepy. Fred, on your sleek new Brody, please rescue me. Here's a biography of Simon Wiesenthal with a red sale sticker. I saw him first in Donald Britton's Memorandum in Jan Vriesen's studio on Government Street in Victoria in 1974. Jan was painting post-parasital villages. Here on a shelf before me is a gentle poet who extracts convenient lessons from animals. For example, a setting sun engraves an antique path through wind-kissed grasses. An animal arrives, maybe a mink, sniffing sky-blue banners of vetch in a glowing dale, casting shadows reminiscent of a prayer wheel, as if inhabiting a poem in which an animal, like a mink, appears in furry notes of licorice, cherry, burnt coffee, and beaten gold. Stitched into the vestments of the Patriarch of Alexandria, and appears to bow deeply as an expression of humility to its maker. A homily follows. How about this? A blind, matted creature noses through a rank culvert, inhaling spoor, pausing to urinate before emerging only to be whacked on the head by a farmer's shovel, while the poet pauses for a beaker of pouilly fusée, his lines flaccid, tarnished with the ferric bite of faux enlightenment and the 9-mattressed 4-poster. Save me, Fred. Tell me red is green, dark is light. The cleaver bows down to the pullet. Alan Rickman lives. Is that Lester Young? I remember Jerusalem gave you the creeps. The other day I rode my Brody between 2 cop cars. One rolled down his window and called out to the other, "Jumper on Granville Street Bridge." Off they went. The poem is Vanity's Anvil. I feel a manifesto rising in my gullet. Fred, our freedom dreams, let the jackals back in. Please rescue me. My arms are beating the air like Galagas Nangas. I'm shrieking. Oh, but it feels good too. Don't save me too soon. I hear you say, slow down, sip from the rim of the bowl. This is called Traveler. I'll just tell you what this is. This is a little wooden figure that I made out of pieces of kindling. A strip of red cedar, thick as a wasp is long, will do. Whittle to a small beam, make 2, add 2, this time a 4.5 in length. The coil of green dynamite wire from Rockingham Park subdivision is for wrapping the beam ends tightly to minimize splitting when the brass screw eyes enter the wood. Split, bark, dress, a new strip, like the first, then 2 shorter lengths, whittle to hips and shoulders. With a fine-toothed saw, halve forearm beams, pare away splinters, wrap with dynamite wire the color of boiled lobster. Small brass screw eyes make nice knees. Wrap extremities, tack short beams, top and bottom, set aside a small hard apple. Link screw eyes, prying open with pliers, hook scapula to humerus, femur to acetybulum, shake loose, pierce shoulder, pass tack through, fix apple to tack, rotate to find a persuasive angel, that should be angle, whittle hands and feet, right one bunioned, hook with screw eyes, jiggle loose. This one is an oyster in wood, a holy book, a second self, kindling kin, a migrant in our dimension. I mark the hour in which I tinker with you. We're only a step away from the wreckers. You dance jigs, the old ones that frighten me. I hang you on a limb. I blow on you. You take in air. I am restless when you are still. Is it you who will journey to the moon for me? Is that a feather on the snow? Are those ashes? Errand runner, on your way. I lift you into the air. I'll read one more, if that's okay with you. There are a series of 12 prose poems, I guess they could be called improvisations, and they're composed a bit like the way a jazz quartet would play, where different musicians in the quartet would take solos. Sometimes they'd start with a duet, something like that, and they'd play through, and maybe play through several times. There'd be several solos, and bring themselves back again to the melody often. So in this case, instead of different musicians, they're different threads, in a sense, different channels that run through these texts. This is number 5. Multiples, shiners, bobbins of the sea, weavers, souls as waves, wiggling blennies and eel pouts, cusk pouts and gunnels, belted blenny, rock blenny, fugitive black blenny with your eye. I should tell you first, a blenny's a little, and can be quite big. It's kind of like a leech. You find it in beaches. If you pick rocks up off the beach, you can see them, and they often glisten in the sand and then try and burrow away under the sand again. Sometimes they're quite big. This is really a poem about blennies. I'll start again. Multiples, shiners, bobbins of the sea, weavers, souls as waves, wiggling blennies and eel pouts, cusk pouts and gunnels, belted blenny, rock blenny, fugitive black blenny with your eye band, huddled under boulders as the seas sucked out. Siri prickled, ornamented blenny, decorated blenny with plume rose siri. Mr. Spencer, a white man, captured you in Yalis in 1890 at 14.5 inches and donated you to the Provincial Museum. Saddled blenny, taken by Lieutenant Colonel Hawkins on the steam sloop HMS Plumper in 1861. Bracketed blenny, hauled aboard the tug Albatross, a former Royal Navy torpedo boat in 1903. Fucus blenny, yanked out of a cormorant's neck near Victoria in 1936. Penpoint blenny, transferred from the hold of HMS Plumper to a drawer in the British Museum on her return, a bequest of the Lords of the Admiralty. Baleful crested blenny of freshwater stream mouths, hooked by Hawkins under rocks along the foreshore. Rye mouth, 3 feet long or longer. A white man hauled you in at Guayi from 18 fathoms in 1881. Red devil with your eyes of the ancient ooze, plucked from a cod's stomach by a white man near Pender Island in 1934. Your veins beneath transparent skin. Why blenny, mini philosopher, for decades the first member of a blenny triad in the Nanaimo collection. Eel blenny, in a bouquet of sea worms, pulled to the surface in Esquimalt by Captain H.E. Nichols in May 1882. White barred blenny in 1941, collateral damage when shrimpers trawled Burrard Inlet. Long-snouted blenny, quillfish, lured by lamps and torches, taken at Haystack Island off the mouth of the Nash. a stranger to white men until 1925. Sticks, staves, lingams of the sea, wattled eel pout, a desiccated specimen at UBC, short-finned eel pout, a fellow traveller taken by albatross off Taxis in 1903 and later identified in a lingcod's gullet near Victoria. Black-finned eel pout by albatross off Nanaimo, reeled in 5 nights before the short-finned eel pout. Big-finned eel pout, black-bellied eel pout, raised from the bottom, a gorger on crustaceans, bivalves, and brittle stars. Soft eel pout, tiny pearly eel pout, 3 centimeters long, pried by a white man's finger from the throat of a black-finned eel pout in 1928. Pale eel pout, cusk pout, at 1 centimeter, netted by an earlier albatross in 1890, after rising from 1,588 fathoms, forwarded to the United States National Museum. Burrowing blenny, pale pink, mauve, pale purple, up to 15 centimeters long, lurks in tide pools, bores into beaches, hooked by a white man off Estevan Point in 1934, 8 years before the enemy rose out of the sea, lifting and falling in the swell, seawater streaming from its vents to clear and load the 14-centimeter deck gun.